Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, and you can listen to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. Still feels odd doing this without my personal champion, Travis T. Holmes, who is currently on assignment doing his thing out there. And of course, he will be missed. But nonetheless, we will channel the fun and ball-knowing spirit that is him anyways. But nonetheless, listen, it was due time for me to reach out to you guys with just me doing a one-off here. And in particular, the topic in question being the brief conversation that Jimmy Stones had with the Duval public at large among the devout. And of course, shouts to the comments. Tapa in here first, commenting his Jimmy Stone's first full off season with his staff, and he's already making progress. I'll be happy when we are finally free of that atrocious dead cap. Facts of the case. I don't think that's hard to knock. A 9-game season improvement, 9-win season improvement for last year says plenty. And then Radius jumps in. We'll keep you company. Don't worry. Hey, man, I'm glad you're here. Glad we can make it fit within the schedule across the pond. Robert jumps in the comments. Draft can't come fast enough. We won't be talking about draft, but there'll be definitely that coming to a great extent here on the Duval Dive sooner than later. A couple more pieces. I enjoyed Gladstone slapping down the aggregators. What is it? The reputable sources haven't been saying certain things yet, right? The aggregators trying to second guess his agenda for clicks. And then PJ Brown in the comments, Mason Smith breakout incoming. I'm going to address that another time, PJ Brown, but I'll give you the spoiler alert. I'm not sure I agree. If you have an argument, I'll hear it, man. Feel free to comment as we go on. But speaking of some of these aggregators that we mentioned here involving Jimmy Stones, the particular piece I want to address is tweets like this. Lost Travis Etienne, lost Devin Lloyd, haven't added a single free agent, although officially not true at this point with Chris Rodriguez in the building. Mentioned that on Wednesday, by the way, here on the Duval Dive. Oh, and they don't have a first-round draft pick. Not a good look, especially with the rest of the division getting better. And see, here's the part I don't necessarily agree with. I don't agree that the rest of the AFC South got better. Now, I will grant the Titans made some moves, and maybe the Texans got Knuckles on their squad, right? Picking up the running back from Detroit. But listen, friend of the show, Generation Jaguar himself, Jordan DeLugo, says it best in this tweet. The Colts have gotten a bit worse, although one could argue with the money they're throwing at Indiana Jones, a.k.a. Danny Dimes, a.k.a. Daniel Jones, may keep them from getting particularly better anytime soon, that's for sure. The Texans have gotten a little better. The Titans have overspent, but done some nice things. Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think the biggest piece, when we break that down, and we talked a bit about it on Wednesday, it goes, well, frankly, it goes with Robert's comment, the draft can't come fast enough. That's right. There's still plenty of time for moves to be made, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a whole situation where there's so much movement that could still happen at this juncture. And the draft can't get here fast enough for you Duval divers, for you Duval devout to see it. And you know, whatever moves can be made. But one may ask, Kyle, what is it that they can actually do with ammunition to make a move to move up on there at all? Well, why don't you hear it from the man himself? Here's Jimmy Stones talking this past Thursday. Let's take a listen.
We're at a stage now where, a higher volume of draft capital is what we're hunting up, and those compensatory picks. When you think about high-priced free agents of ours ended up signing elsewhere, well-deserved contracts. I mean, a lot of guys that have already announced his signing, I mean, they did their part to put themselves in really sound positions to earn that, and excited for all those guys. In return, by not signing any outside free agents, we recoup 2027 draft capital. And I think on its surface, you would think, oh, okay, you're going to make picks in 2027. Whereas in reality, those draft picks and having more of them actually allows you the luxury of remaining in the hunt at different intervals throughout the entire calendar year for acquiring players. You You think about training camp a year ago and using a day 3 pick to acquire a wide receiver in Tim Patrick. You think about ahead of the trade deadline and being able to use 2 picks on day 3 to acquire a wide receiver in Jacoby Myers. Without that draft capital at your disposal, you may not be as willing or able to relinquish some of those future picks. So by building that up now, it allows us the luxury of remaining sort of with the flexibility to do those sorts of things as we move into the next stages of the offseason and into the regular season.
So with all of the above being said, the points he make there, of course, are very valid, and it's a good thing he's making valid points for his moves, or else he wouldn't have known better as to have made them, right? But he mentions in particular using picks to acquire players. Specifically, he mentions Tim Patrick, who, wasn't necessarily world-beating as far as production for the entire season. Certainly had some big moments, although our good friend Travis D. Holmes would do our best to not have you forget the Arizona Cardinal game, but let's not get too much into that at the moment. But in particular, he mentions a wide receiver. The wide receiver acquisition last year. That is Jacoby Myers, right? And we've heard it time and again. We talked about it on this show time and again. Jacoby Myers was the thing that lifted this team in the back half of that year, over and above maybe a weaker schedule. But that lull hit by facing what many people think were the top 2 teams in the NFL, potentially, right? The 2 biggest Super Bowl candidates. Deal with it, Patriot fans, right? After taking those beatings from the defending champions, from the NFC runner-up Rams, Jacoby Myers comes in after the Raider game, which they win by only a single play, thanks to Devon Hamilton making that swat at the end, right? That situation happens on the back of picks being available. It's interesting that they're referred as compensatory picks, right? Because the whole reason they're called compensatory picks is you're getting compensated for something you lost. But what about this, my friend? Maybe the compensatory picks in that they become compensation with which Jimmy Stones works. Folks, there's a very key element to the whole F them picks strategy. In order to have picks, which are eventually to be effed, so to speak, you have to have them in the chamber. And this is the method through which Jimmy Stones gets them. Now, and let me give shouts to Preston because, Duval Dive channel member, Preston, PT phone home. I'd rather keep ET and Orloid than the comps, but they got my trust. Stones draft efficiency in later rounds deserves it. And that's a great point, right? My favorite draft pick, not the best one because, Travis Hunter was a whole thing and the most popular one. My favorite one was and still is LaQuint Allen, a literal 7th round pick. So yeah, to your point, Preston, LaQuint Allen is one of those picks that have won you over, as is Bagshaw Tootin, who is currently going to be the assumed. Well, can we assume he's RB1? This is a committee with C-Rod in the building. God only knows what's going to happen there, right? I don't know. And then with all the heirs apparent, backups in place to keep this offensive line deep, right? Wyatt Milam, Jonah Monheim, and others, right? Other players of this ilk that are in there. We haven't even heard from Ramsey. What can Jalen McLeod do? Which, by the way, I think it's cool that Jimmy Stones finally confirms that it's McLeod, and I could take I wish he were here so I could do it to his face, but take the opportunity to make fun of Travis D. Holmes for calling him McLeod for all these months. But I can't make too much of fun of him because apparently I've been pronouncing Etienne wrong. It's Etienne. I'm not saying Etienne because, listen, it's an E, all right? At some point, it's not an A. Sorry, Travis, there, of course. I'm referring to him in his press conference, greeting himself or introducing himself to the Nolan Saints and telling everybody his name's pronounced wrong. Etienne. So be it. I will acquiesce, although that kills it for all of us that have gotten used to using 3 letters to spell his name and spelling it out completely, as mentioned here in Preston's comment, by the way. Etienne. Maybe instead you put E-T and then C-H in Etienne. I don't know. It's only 2 letters shorter. I don't know. Anyways, enough wordplay humor. But another thing that came up Hey, and by the way, Social Alki, I see you've become a member too. Thanks for coming aboard. I appreciate that. He calls out, "What up, divers?" With all that in mind, there's another element that came up. Brian Thomas Jr. Now, I know my personal champion I throughout this offseason has said that BTJ isn't going anywhere. Now, I'll be honest. I will dial back from being all like I said, never say never, but never, like pure Mike Tomlin action here, right? What I'm on record, see, and I wasn't smooth like Travis D. Holmes to pull down my actual tweet to show here and reference myself. I'm just not that cool. That's my fault. But on Twitter, I said, Brian Thomas Jr., do I think they'll trade? Do I think they're shopping Brian Thomas Jr.? No. Do I think they'll take calls? Yes. Do I believe that the deal that had to be made would have to be made to get Brian Thomas Jr. as something that would make the entire football public turn their head? Absolutely. But you don't have to believe me anymore. Jimmy Stones also said that there aren't any reputable sources that are citing it. And this obsession with the movement on Brian Thomas Jr. based on his start to the year doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. And if you don't like my word for it, let me go ahead and pull this up right here. Friend of the show, Daniel Griffiths tweets, Brian Thomas Jr.'s drop problem vanished. He mentions it from weeks 1 through 9. 7 drops, 18.9% of his targets were drops. Weeks 13 through 18, the back part of the season, back half of the season for all intents and purposes, 1 drop, 5.3% of his targets. Now, I mention constantly and have mentioned constantly this past season that it was about after week 4 or so that I started to see him kind of turn the corner and get his head back, make that tough catch that he couldn't before. Now, was he still a little timid, maybe going over the middle or trying to catch a particular kind of pass that he normally would in the past? Perhaps. But I saw that improvement. Then after the Niner game, especially later on, I felt like he was back. Then in the back part of the season, he started to really get it together. Now, was he the BTJ that everybody got used to when he was combined with McCorkle Jones? No. Do we think that he could still come back to be a player if he remains healthy the whole season that can go back to that rookie year form? Absolutely. But to even go to a portion, let's say 80% of that rookie form for the money he's to be endowed compared to some of the top receivers, value-wise, it's unstoppable. Value-wise, it's unstoppable. Social Alki in the comments, they basically stopped running BTJ across the middle. Yeah, they made him a guy that's meant to be a speed guy to take things off the top. Now, granted, one could argue with Travis Hunter being off the roster without being involved, because he was hurt, forced him to play that role primarily. That could be a thing. We could see what happens with the coming season and how that's adjusted, especially now that C-Rod and that running game could beef up a bit more and attack things more between the tackles to make play action more convincing, perhaps. But yeah, I think that's an element too. Robert mentioned something in the comments that I think is interesting. They also didn't force feed BTJ and took pressure off of him. Jacoby made his life easier. Jacoby Myers did that, and he also made the phenomenon of shoot Parker there somewhere with Parker Washington possible, and ironically by Travis Etienne, basically pronounced the same as Miami H-N. Yeah, Social, okay, I hear you. I just refuse to commit to that. Like, listen, I have in-laws in New Orleans. They would chastise. They should have chastised me by now. I'll be honest. Where are y'all? Where were y'all? I was on a cruise with you over Thanksgiving. You couldn't correct me how I'm saying Etienne. What are we doing? But yeah, I'm not going H-N. I'm not going H-N. It's Etienne. E-T, et. That's where I'm at. So I say it. If I'm still getting it wrong, too bad he's not on the team anymore. I don't have to worry about it as much. Anyways, Social Alki's feeling me on that. So, and Preston, I'll hit you up in the comments here. With Cohen having another offseason to figure out BT in the system, I think he's up for figuring it out. Yeah, that's a great point, too. He's still a young player. This is year 3, right? The term sophomore slump didn't just develop out of thin air. It's a thing that has happened before, has an element of, shall we say, consistency to it throughout football life. And maybe even the college ranks, depending on who you observe. Robert Lamis in the comments should have used BTJ more in the Buffalo playoff game. Yeah, that's something that's been talked about on this show, too, to a certain extent, is that the long ball could have been better utilized, and maybe BTJ should have been more involved with that. Maybe there was an element of Trevor being a little, nervous because he was under more pressure. I did intimate Walker Little starting at left tackle was a problem because I think Cole Van Lannon was missing due to some sort of injury thing in himself there too in that particular instance. So there's that. Radius reminds me about Ransaw being in the mix. I thought I mentioned him eventually too. The injuries make him easy to forget through no fault of his own. Absolutely right. Yeah, I think that's where a lot of that piece goes. Ron Brogy comes in, another run the ball guy, and I'm not dissing it. I love how there's the run the ball devotion takes place here, because I'm still of the opinion that the O-line wasn't where it needed to be last year to run the ball as often as is being requested. It's not that I dislike the requests to run the ball. I just don't know that the team was there yet. But anyway, Ron's comment, you should have run the ball in the fourth quarter instead of sending the running backs on the bench and trying to pass into the number one pass defense, which, Ron, I actually agree with that to some extent. I think an element of it was because they didn't take the points earlier with the field goal opportunity that they might have had, as we say on the show, the lemon booty. Right? They got a little nervous and didn't think they would get enough production, perhaps, if they didn't run the ball. Obviously, we know better now. And Preston reminds me, it wasn't just the Buffalo game. We didn't go deep. We needed to go deep more often all year. Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I think we were using the Buffalo game just as to kind of a microcosm. And, oh, by the way, the most important game, the Jags played last year, I think is worth stating there as well. No, so 100% all the way around. But folks, Stone standing on business. We referenced he referenced C-Rod early in the press conference as well, talking about if you check the film, this is a guy that's going to get it done. Something I'm going to do before the next Duval dive. I'm going to check Rodriguez's fumble numbers compared to Tank Bigsby's and see what I come up with. Right? That alone could change the conversation, because I say and I maintain that C-Rod is going to be what Tank Bigsby was meant to be. I mentioned it on Wednesday here on the Duval Dive, so I think I'll be able to add to that narrative a bit better. Let's see, going through the comments here, you guys are coming in strong even here for a one-off episode. I appreciate every one of you for doing the thing. Last bit of news I did want to touch on, just for those who are interested. Last year he was on the squad. You may have forgotten, didn't see him very much, but nonetheless, the interesting thing is De'Ami Brown, the veteran wide receiver, going back to Washington on a one-year deal worth up to $3 million, according to Tom Pelissero on Twitter. So he's going back to play with the Red Tails. Commanders, where he came from in the first place. And I think it's just because the room got too crowded, right? With Jacoby Myers in there and him getting the money, with BTJ, his potential to bounce back. Travis Hunter may not be playing as much receiver. He will see snaps. Parker Washington emerging, I think, is the biggest thing. Radius mentions of Brown, quite the pay cut. Well, hey, when you consider how much he wasn't used last season, one can only imagine. I think he needs to prove it here, and if he does prove it there with the Commanders, he'll be in a position to where he could, let's say, regain his credibility to earn a bit more. Social Alki in the comments talks about C-Rod. C-Rod plays with that forward lean. I like how you're putting that. He does protect the ball as told on Locked On Commanders. Interesting enough, another Commanders reference there too. Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers, but it's not hard for me to believe. I mean, to quote Travis D. Holmes, the bar's in hell if you expect me to believe that Tanks Bigsby holds the ball worse than C-Rod does. Yeah, I that's not hard for me to buy, Social. I hear you on all that. So, yeah, guys, just wanted to jump on, touch on Jimmy Stone's standing on business when it comes to matters of C-Rod, BTJ, comp picks, and so much more. He did mention Monteric Brown at the end, but to be honest, he said a lot of the things you expect. It's nice to keep him in the room, and it gives him the opportunity to have a bit more flexibility, especially when you get a guy at a price that's significantly lower. And listen, Jimmy Stones is working so hard to try to keep the money in the right place. He's even restructuring the dang punter, for goodness sake, y'all. It's going to be all right. Preston in the comments going back to the receivers, BTJ, Hunter, Trevor, all good deep. Trevor throwing the ball to them. All good deep. I hope it's in the 26 play calling more. Yeah, me too. You know, I think there'll be a lot of there. Storm the Desert. And I think you've mentioned this in another comment in the past, and I appreciate it, Storm. Sometimes being responsible is boring, just like in real life. Well, hey, how about this? How about you get a little more boring and get some offensive linemen in this draft and complete your 2-year build process that I keep calling for? That's where I'm at with that. Yeah, but no, sometimes being responsible is boring. And that's exactly what Stones and company have produced here. Okay, and yeah, Social Alki asks in the comments, what are your thoughts on Stone's value and uses comp picks for trade leverage? Yeah, of course. As I said earlier, one can't live in a world of the F them pick strategy without picks with which to F around with, right? So yeah, that's exactly, I think it's another form of currency to acquire another player, especially when you're in a scenario, guys, where your free agent mobility is limited by your salary cap piece, right? I think that's definitely something to speak about. Reyes, I see a little member title here next to you. Thanks for making that happen, by the way. I think we will see the expansion of system, it being just season 2. I agree. And keep in mind, he's still trying to flesh out and cleanse, if you will, Trent Baalke's contract sins still. So I think that's a big element of it as well, Reyes, to your point. The foundation is done, and now they can expand it. Yeah, I think there's something to that. So excited for September. Reyes, we haven't even hit draft yet, and you're bringing up September. I don't know if that's good or bad or what, but I like it. So, guys, listen, this was a great one. Love the opportunity to pop in with you here for a bit. I got to get ready actually and set to do my thing on Locked On UCF because, you know, the Big 12 basketball tournament is over for them. And we have to see this weekend if they're going to make the dance. So make sure you check that out. Locked On UCF for all of that. Social Alki in the comments, we are seeing a divers expansion as well. That's absolutely right, guys. And by the way, if you are within the sound of my voice, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, get your notifications. If you're feeling frisky, do the home membership thing. That's a fun thing there too, as we're seeing that expand to Social Alki's point. Yeah, a great thing all the way around. I appreciate you too, Preston. Thank you very much. Last comment here I'll get to from Storm the Desert. Gladstone after 2026 season and Walker Little is gone. All of Baalke's free agent signings outside of Armstead's void year are off the books. Yeah, that Walker Little piece is big, man. And I got to tell you, I was a Walker Little supporter compared to Cam Robinson back then. But now at this point, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I think for the money, he's a bit expensive. And I think it's possible to upgrade at a lower price if you find the right talent, which this group has proven time and again you can do. All of the above. Sunstain, I'm seeing a membership thing by you here too, man. Guys, y'all are amazing. And listen, I know when Travis watches this and scouts me, he's not only going to pick apart things I did wrong, but he's going to see all the extra memberships I'm talking about here in the comments and be just as grateful as all you. He'll be back here soon for the next installment. I can guarantee you for that. That's going to be fantastic. And of course, guys, thank you as always for your support. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, at BSOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my coverage of UCF on Locked On UCF, which I'll be getting here tonight to record that. Make sure you check out my defense of Johnny Dawkins and all these idiots out there that think he should be fired as one of the best men's basketball coaches UCF has ever had. That's all. And of course, check out my work covering the Orlando Magic as well. To all you Duval divers, thank you for making this real easy to do, even when I'm by myself. Have a fantastic weekend. Until next time, everyone. Class dismissed.